Good evening, Rachel. This breaking news in the New York Times tonight, if true, answers a bunch of questions, including that bombshell of Donald Trump himself was examining these records at the end of 2021 before they handed back anything at all. Donald Trump was looking in the boxes himself.
And if the rest of the reporting is true, it means he was looking through the stuff himself before they handed over about 150 documents marked classified, but retained another 150 documents marked classified. And he personally was sifting through them to decide what he's going to hold on to. I mean, if the Times' reporting is correct, that just writes itself into the indictment in terms of him personally having made decisions to retain classified documents marked as classified after he'd been told by the government to hand them over. That's just, I mean, that's cut and dried.
And then there's that point that so many of us were wondering about, because we'd had reports for a while now indicating that one of the Trump lawyers signed a document after the June visit by the FBI and Justice Department prosecutors, signing a document saying, OK, the stuff you're taking today, plus the stuff we gave you in January, that's all of it. That's it.
You
have
right?
it all.
Yeah.
You have it all. Here's my signature, Christina Bobb. She is the one who, according to the New York Times, who put her name on that in writing, something that has proven to be false. If that was an intentionally false statement in writing to the FBI, she has a big problem.
And if she said it because she believed it was true and her client lied to her about it, that means her client was trying to conceal evidence of what he was doing, even from his own lawyer, which is potentially an important thing in terms of intent and consciousness of guilt. So either way, it's not good. And it's not good that there's more than 300 documents marked classified, including from the National Security Agency and the FBI and the CIA. Like, it's just, I mean, as Adam Schiff just told me, it doesn't seem like it was one area of interest that, provoked a sort of shiny object reaction in him, like he was a smallmouth bass. It seems to have been a lot of topics from a lot of agencies and a lot of different things related to national security. And that's just really bad.
We're going to get right into it with the key lawyers who know how to examine this kind of a story. Andrew Weissmann, former federal prosecutor Andrew Weissmann, who's been invaluable in bringing to us the prosecutor's view of these kinds of bits of information and how you put them together. I have a feeling he's going to put a lot of this together for us.
I am on the edge of my seat. Thank you, Alex.
Okay. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you. Mr. Trump went through the boxes himself. That is one of the legally devastating lines in a New York Times breaking news report tonight under the headline, Trump had more than 300 classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. Donald Trump's life gets worse every day. And tonight, his life got much worse with the revelation in the New York Times that Donald Trump himself went through all of the boxes of documents that he was illegally possessing and concealing at his Florida home. And this is the kind of reporting that indicates that Donald Trump's legal life is going to get much, much worse as this story keeps moving forward. A team of 4 investigative reporters for the New York Times report that the government has retrieved more than 300 classified documents from Donald Trump's Florida home in 3 different retrievals from Mar-a-Lago, including the 3rd and final retrieval, which was executed by the FBI with a search warrant issued by a judge who said today that he issued that search warrant because he found, quote, probable cause that evidence of multiple federal crimes would be found at the premises. The Times reports, quote, the initial batch of documents retrieved by the National Archives from former President Donald J. Trump in January included more than 150 marked as classified, a number that ignited intense concern at the Justice Department and helped trigger the criminal investigation that led FBI agents to swoop into Mar-a-Lago this month, seeking to recover more. Multiple people briefed on the matter said. But before anyone from the federal government went to Mar-a-Lago in search of documents, the Times reports Mr. Trump went through the boxes himself in late 2021, according to multiple people briefed on his efforts before turning them over. So the Times is reporting that multiple witnesses know that Donald Trump went through the boxes of classified material himself last year. And obviously, Donald Trump decided to keep those boxes. Last week, we learned that when the lawyers for Donald Trump tried to get him to return that material, he delivered the now famous line, "It's not theirs, it's mine." The two lawyers who Donald Trump had made his official representatives on this matter were former White House counsel Pat Cipollone and former White House deputy counsel Patrick Philbin. This year, Donald Trump removed them as his official representatives in dealing with the National Archives. And perhaps then, there may have been no one telling Donald Trump that he had to comply with the law. After the first batch of 150 documents marked as classified were removed from Donald Trump's Florida home in January, federal prosecutors and FBI agents visited Donald Trump's home in June, when, according to the New York Times reporting tonight, aides to Mr. Trump turned over a few dozen additional sensitive documents during a visit to Mar-a-Lago by Justice Department officials in early June. The two Trump lawyers who dealt with the Justice Department investigators who went to Mar-a-Lago in June are potentially tonight in very serious legal trouble of their own, based on the breaking news reporting in the New York Times tonight, which describes false assurances that those two lawyers provided to the Justice Department in writing. The Times reports on June 3rd, Jay Bratt, the chief of the counter-espionage section of the National Security Division of the Justice Department, went to Mar-a-Lago to meet with two of Mr. Trump's lawyers, Evan Corcoran and Christina Bobb, and retrieve any remaining classified material to satisfy the subpoena. Mr. Corcoran went through the boxes himself to identify classified material beforehand, according to two people familiar with his efforts. Mr. Corcoran showed Mr. Bratt the basement storage room where he said the remaining material had been kept. Mr. Trump briefly came to see the investigators during the visit. Mr. Bratt and the agents who joined him were given a sheaf of classified material, according to two people familiar with the meeting. Mr. Corcoran then drafted a statement, which Ms. Bobb, who is said to be the custodian of the documents, signed. It asserted that, to the best of her knowledge, all classified material that was there had been returned, according to two people familiar with the statement. The statement wasn't true. It was not true. Christina Bobb signed her name to it, and Evan Corcoran wrote it. Evan Corcoran drafted a statement that was not true. And Christina Bobb signed the untrue statement in an official written communication with the Justice Department, where it is a crime to lie to the FBI. The Times goes on to explain why the investigation didn't end there. Justice Department officials had just visited Mar-a-Lago themselves. They'd been assured in writing by the Trump lawyers with that document signed by Christina Bobb that the Justice Department was now in possession of all of the classified documents that were there. But here's what happened next. Soon after that visit, investigators who were interviewing several people in Mr. Trump's circle about the documents came to believe that there were other presidential records that had not been turned over, according to the people familiar with the matter. On June 22nd, the Justice Department subpoenaed the Trump Organization for Mar-a-Lago's security footage. It revealed people moving boxes in and out, and in some cases appearing to change the containers some documents were held in. Every one of those people in those videos about moving those boxes is going to be questioned under oath by the Justice Department about exactly what they were doing with those boxes. But that video seems to have played a strong role in convincing the Justice Department and Attorney General Merrick Garland that they would need a search warrant to get more classified material from Donald Trump's home. And when the FBI completed the search that the search warrant allowed them to conduct on August 8th, the New York Times reports, officials left with 26 boxes, including 11 sets of material marked as classified, comprising scores of additional documents. One set had the highest level of classification, top secret, sensitive, compartmented information. Donald Trump, the Times reports, went through the boxes himself at the end of last year, withheld that information when the first batch of documents was returned to the National Archives in January, and Donald Trump continued to withhold that information when another batch of documents was handed over to the Justice Department in June. And when the FBI showed up with a search warrant in August, Donald Trump was still holding on to 11 sets of material marked as classified, comprising scores of additional documents. One set had the highest level of classification, top secret, sensitive, compartmented information. That's what Donald Trump was holding on to when the FBI arrived at his home. The Times reports the FBI agents who conducted the search found the additional documents in the storage area in the basement of Mar-a-Lago, as well as in a container in a closet in Mr. Trump's office, the People said. Leading off our discussion tonight, Andrew Weissmann, former FBI General Counsel and former Chief of the Criminal Division of the Eastern District of New York. He is Professor of Practice at NYU Law School and an MSNBC legal analyst. Also with us, Bradley Moss, a national security attorney. And Andrew Weissmann, I think you know that I just delivered all of the news in the New York Times reporting tonight in as short a form as possible. That is the compressed version. That's how packed this is. What is your reading of this breaking news tonight?
You know, I started by reading the filing, but I was going to say the press release, but it's actually a legal filing that Donald Trump made today in Florida. And I thought that was going to be the lead story because it's such a crazy document and in so many ways is incriminating of the former president. But it really does fit with the New York Times story. And as you and as Rachel pointed out, you know, the critical thing as a prosecutor is you're looking for something that a putative defendant did himself or herself. So the story about Donald Trump personally looking at things is exactly what you need to prosecute. And, you know, I read the story and I just felt the noose tightening around his neck. But I think there's another shoe to drop here, just to mix a lot of metaphors, which is with the filing today that Donald Trump made, he is opening the door wide for the Justice Department to respond. You know, the Attorney General famously has said, we only speak through court filings. Well, this is going to allow the Attorney General to respond to all of the false, statements that are in that filing and to fill in some of the timeline and corroborate or not the New York Times story, because they know all of the facts and all of the truth and can easily dispel it, but they now have a perfect vehicle for doing that. So I would anticipate that that filing is going to do a lot of what we've been hoping that the court would do in unsealing part of the affidavit.
Yeah, and that's the filing by Trump's lawyers saying they want a special master appointed to sort out this evidence that was collected by the FBI to possibly take some of it out of the FBI's custody. Bradley Moss, on this New York Times reporting tonight, we now know, according to this reporting, that Attorney Christina Bobb is the person who signed the document handed two FBI agents and federal prosecutors at Donald Trump's home, saying, today in June, on this day in June, you have now taken everything marked classified in this building. Turns out that's not true. What does that mean for Attorney Christina Bobb and for the attorney who wrote that document for her to sign?
Yeah, Lawrence, they're both in a whole lot of trouble. And let's be clear, MAGA once again stands for one thing: make attorneys, get attorneys. If I was Christina Bobb tonight, I would be hiring a lawyer immediately for myself, because right now she's on the hook. It's her name on that document. She swore, and she caveated it fine, but she swore that there were no more classified documents. There were. The next step for the FBI, and this is where those surveillance tapes come into play, this is where those other witness interviews come into play. Did Christina Bobb know differently? Did she know or have reason to know there were other classified documents before she signed that document? Because if she did, she's in a whole ton of trouble under Section 1001 for material false representations to the feds. And if Donald Trump lied to her and she didn't know, he could be in a whole lot of trouble. Andrew knows that from the Manafort case.
And Andrew, between Donald Trump and Christina Bobb here is Evan Corcoran, the other lawyer. He's the lawyer who writes the document. He writes it, but for some reason, Andrew, he doesn't want to sign it himself. He lets Christina Bobb sign it.
Yeah, that's a smart move, and it's highly suspicious as to why she signed it and he didn't. But he's in just as much trouble under aiding and abetting if he knew it was false and she was going to sign it. Look, it's going to be a situation where it's either the lawyers or Donald Trump is going down based on that statement. And the lawyers presumably are going to say, hey, I thought it was true because that's what my client told me, the client being Donald Trump. That is exactly what happened in the Paul Manafort case, where he told his lawyers to say something and made representations about what they should convey to the Department of Justice. And we got a court order from the chief judge in D.C. saying that lawyer, there's no attorney-client privilege there. The lawyer can reveal exactly who they learned the information from. And Paul Manafort was charged with lying to the government because he caused those statements to be made. Exactly the same play can be made, and the case law is very strong on that issue. And look, the lawyers have to make a choice. Is it them or is it the client? And I would actually suspect that it is the client. I mean, I think the lawyers would be incredibly foolhardy to sign something that they knew was false.
And Bradley Moss, it seems the client, Donald Trump, has a choice to make as of right now. These two can no longer be his lawyers, even for his own self-protection. They are headed down a road where one way or another, they're going to be testifying against Donald Trump. I think you'd advise Donald Trump, don't ever talk to those two again.
No, yeah, definitely. Do not speak with them. They're going to become material fact witnesses if this ultimately comes an indictment in a criminal trial. He needs to get, and I don't know if he's going to be able to pull it off at this point because he's burned so many bridges with the legal community. He needs a slew of proper, qualified, competent criminal defense attorneys. He's already got one, I think, that he recently just retained, but he needs a team if he's going to be able to actually put together a competent defense. And Andrew kind of hinted at it with this filing we saw tonight, this mishmash of political screeds sprinkled with little legal theories upon it. It was horrible. It was utter garbage. It was amateur hour. That's not going to suffice. That might play well for now and to fundraise and raise money. That's not going to play well if there is an indictment. He needs a real team, and I don't know if he's going to be able to get it.
I want to go to something that the Judge Reinhart, in the search warrant case, he basically today put in writing as an order the opinion he issued from the bench last week, ordering the Justice Department to review the FBI affidavit that it submitted to this judge to get the search warrant, to see if they could redact it in such a way that would allow the judge to publicly release a redacted version of it because of what the judge acknowledges is legitimate public interest in that document, which is the only factor the judge says release has going for it. Every other factor the judge cited in his order indicates that he should not release it. But the judge also made raised these points that he said he has to consider in this question. And these are truly unique when it comes to a matter involving a presidential investigation. The judge said legitimate governmental concerns include whether witnesses will be unwilling to cooperate and provide truthful information if their identities might be publicly disclosed. Law enforcement's ability to use certain investigative techniques in the future may be compromised if these techniques become known to the public. And there will be, he says, an increased risk of obstruction of justice or subornation of perjury if subjects of the investigation know the investigative sources and methods. He said, one of the statutes for which I found probable cause was 18 U.S.C. Section 1519, which prohibits obstructing an investigation. So, Andrew Weissmann, there's the judge in the case saying, I saw evidence of probable cause of obstruction of justice already before the search warrant was executed. Now, if you reveal what I saw in the affidavit, you are increasing and aiding and abetting, in effect, more obstruction of justice and witness intimidation and subornation of perjury.
Yeah, if I were at DOJ and I saw the written order, I actually think it's actually a little better for them than what he said in court. And he seems very solicitous of the various factors that the department laid out for him, which is the concern about national security, the criminal case, and witness intimidation and threats. And of course, this judge himself knows about the threats because he has been the beneficiary of the threats as a result of the reaction of Donald Trump and various Republicans to a lawful search going on. So it's not, I think that we should not hold our breath and hope for seeing a lot out of this warrant. The judge also said to the government that he's willing to hear argument and evidence from them ex parte as to why they want to release or not release things. So I think he's going to be, pretty stingy with what he releases. But as I said, the department may have its cake and eat it too, because they can, have very little of the affidavit come out, but they get to respond to all of the falsities in the submission on the special master filing. So they really get to play in the right forum. And if they want to take on that press release that essentially Donald Trump issued in his filing, they're going to be able to do it.
And just to clarify for the audience, that little reference to ex parte indicates that the judge is willing to speak to the prosecution alone, without any other lawyer's presence, the Justice Department alone, saying, tell me what worries you about this going beyond just us.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yes, it is totally, obviously, it has to be just with the government. Otherwise, it's all moot. If this was going to happen in open court, then the whole decision is something that's rendered academic. So the discussion between the government and the filings are going to happen just between the government and the court, at least in the first instance. If the judge decides that there's some part that should be released, we may see small portions of it. But again, I don't think it'll be too much, especially since the government has another opportunity here to reveal what it wants to reveal and to take on the issues in that filing.
Andrew Weissmann and Bradley Moss, thank you once again for starting off our discussion tonight. Really appreciate it tonight.